Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is April 3rd, 2024, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today is Wednesday, which means that we are going to talk about all the AI news that we think is interesting. And by we, that's the individuals on the show. So today we have Jyunmi, Andy, Beth, and I'm Brian. We'll see if anybody else pops in the door today. But as I always say before the show, we typically, today's a good example. We do not talk about the news before we got on air. So we don't actually know what everybody's bringing to the table. We assume there'll be some overlap. And yeah, it's always a fun time because we talk about what's interesting in the last 7 days. And I think, we see cycles. I actually think this last 7 days has been pretty interesting. Nothing like mind blowing, but some really, really interesting stuff in the news. And if I could, I'd like to start with something that actually happened yesterday that we have been talking about, and that's Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence, came out yesterday. It got delivered to my door sometime around noon. I picked it up at 4:30, did a bunch of other stuff, and I had finished it by 9:30. So it's a short read. You can tell it's not a terribly long book. And I was my daughter was like, "But how did you read it in one day?" I was like, "There's not a whole lot of words on each page. You can move through it pretty quickly." I would not consider myself to be an avid reader. By the way, Karl just showed up as well. Welcome, Karl. So I want to talk about the book really quick. I think we could do a whole show on it, but I just wanted to mention and kind of give my plug for it, honestly. I found it to be a really great read. Was there anything mind-boggling in there that anybody on this show, or maybe our frequent listeners, wouldn't already know or know about AI? Maybe, perhaps, but he does a great job because he's a Wharton professor. He's got that educator mind. He does a great job of breaking things down into simple concepts. He has some really, really good actionable advice, 4 steps in there that I think everybody could literally do in line with what we've talked about on the show. But I will tell you really quick, my favorite part of the book was towards the back end where he starts talking about education. And he does a very good job of breaking down the parts and pieces of education where we might see AI disrupt, how it might get worse before it gets better. A whole lot in there. There's about maybe 4 chapters in there towards the end of the book where he really talks about that. And then he finishes the book talking about, hey, what happens if this is the best AI gets? It's not likely, but like, what if we're topping out? What if there's no more data to source? All these kind of things. What happens then? And he kind of makes a point to, go read the book, but he makes a good point about, hey, even if it's stopped today, we still have, massive improvements because of AI and stuff. Probably not going to be the case. Then sort of middle of the road. And what if it really accelerates at a pace that's, towards AGI, things like that? And what happens at that point once it gets to a super level of intelligence? And what does that mean for humans when humans are no longer the smartest thing on planet Earth, right? So very, very cool. Highly recommend the book. Just wanted to give it a quick shout out. Did anybody have a chance to read? Anybody know? Beth, you said you had it on Audible. Did anybody else dig into the book at all yesterday?
I dug in a little, but I did not speed listen through the entire thing, I admit. But I think it would be really fun. You talked about doing it in a future show. We'll give the audience a little bit of time, right? So like, read the book too, and join us for discussion on it.
Yeah, for sure. I found it to be a very easy read. So, and by the way, this is what I'll say. I said this in a LinkedIn post today. You literally don't need to know anything about AI, and you can get immense value from this book. It does not start at, okay, so we all know about LLMs and go, right? It's really like it goes through. He does a good job of explaining a lot about what's going on, where it came from, how we got to where we were. And then it starts pushing into, okay, where like part 2 is like, okay, where we're going. And I'll tell you my favorite quote from the book. And I agree with you, Beth. But my favorite quote is, we are playing Pac-Man in a world that will soon have PlayStation 6s. I just think that's a really cool quote. It was like one of his last words before it went into part 2 of the book. And I said, I got to remember that for tomorrow. So absolutely, we should do a show on it.
So we've said, give it to your friends who are asking about AI, or give it to your friends who are like, AI, what? You mean ChatGPT? Right? This will give you something to help them get up to speed. But I was on a pre-launch call with him and a whole list of AI insiders And there was very interesting discussion. So even if you're in this, it can be helpful to hear someone else's thought process and laying it out. And as Brian said, as an educator, he's great at that.
Yeah, and go subscribe to his Substack. One Useful Thing, which is a great newsletter that he puts out as well. Very, very. If you read that, there's a lot of commonality between that and the book. But yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's I have other things to share, but that was the one I wanted to make sure I got out off the top because I just thought it was a great book, and it's great to see really intelligent books being written about AI that anybody can consume and get a lot of value out of. What else you guys got?
I will go with open source AI software engineer. So basically, the last 2 weeks, people have been going nuts about Devin, and open source works really quick. So this is an open source Devin. It does not have Devin's front end, but it is available. Right? You can go to GitHub or Hugging Face. Sorry, I don't remember where it was, but you can go and use it. And it has those same kind of functionalities. So like Devin, it solves about 12%, which sounds low until you realize that maybe Andy said this when we were talking about Devin. The average solution is 2%. So 12% is actually quite a jump. It can use natural language to generate something, then troubleshoot itself, find errors, try to fix them, those sorts of things. So we're just getting closer and closer to.
I just want to add that this comes from Princeton's natural language processing AI lab, and they released it as open source. It's not something that you would use as easily as Devin because it requires a special monitor type interface for the agent to chunk, the lines of code into groups of 100 or something. So it's still a research project, and so engineers will find it available, and can use it, but it's not ready for prime time yet as a competitor, if you will, an open source competitor to Devin.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The one of the reasons that this matters is that we're just getting closer and closer to being able to have a software idea and just talk it out with your AI and then have it built for you. It will probably be frustrating because it will build it wrong several times, but then you're much closer.
Cool. Patience is necessary with AI in almost all fronts. You have to build in the patience because it's not always it will not be correct the first time or probably the 10th time a lot of times.
So Karl, what do you got? Are we just picking somebody?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's go round robin. I love it.
Yeah, I think the big we all probably have this on the list is that I think the biggest news of the last couple of weeks is OpenAI's voice engine that is not released. It's just a bunch of previews, and I think obviously they're concerned about voice release and the issues with the upcoming election. I think I do believe that and I didn't know this that HeyGen's translation feature, which I use quite a bit, is running off voice engine. So very interesting to see that, and it actually works very, very well. Like when I've seen it doesn't work necessarily when somebody's not looking at the camera or looking away, but it looks very well if there's a talking head straightforward. The voice, the tone, everything is spot on. So I think that's a really, really amazing product, but I get why they don't want to release it. Although it's kind of curious because 11 Labs is there. So it's not like there's no tools in the market. It's 11 Labs is there. They have their dubbing feature, not as good as the voice, but I don't know if any of you know, there's another company. It's called Palace or Palatio or something. It does exactly the same thing as HeyGen's translation tool.
Oh, really?
Pretty much. I've seen it. And it's been on X several times, but yeah, they do that. So I guess for anybody who didn't know, that is to me, that like one of the biggest news stories of the past couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and the way that they're releasing it, or at least giving previews and things like that, kind of speaks towards what Sam Altman was talking about with Lex Friedman on that interview. How they released Sora. They did say that they wanted to be a little more cognizant of how they roll things out. So this might be just their method of softening the blow, as opposed to just like, oh, here's all these things, go for it, go wild, and that kind of stuff. Does it really solve some of the larger issues? Probably not, but it does cover their butt a little bit. Just saying, hey, we're being responsible. We told you that we were gonna do all of this crazy stuff before we did all the crazy stuff.
Right? Yeah. Changing it a bit. There are two other, before we jump onto any other news, just because we're already talking about OpenAI, they did have two other announcements that came out in the last couple of days. I'll just share my screen super quick. They're pretty fast ones. Screen window. Okay, so the first one is that ChatGPT or OpenAI has said, hey, we're rolling this out. I tried it. It didn't work for me, but you can try it. You can now go to chatgpt.com, which will just send you over to OpenAI.chat, whatever it is, chat.openai, whatever it is. You go to chatgpt.com and you can now use ChatGPT without logging in. And so that's a big change to the way it was. You always had to log in, create an account. They're saying on this website that they want more, I think maybe at the top here, more than 100 million people across 185 countries use ChatGPT weekly to learn and try something new. Starting today, you can use ChatGPT instantly without needing to sign up. We're rolling this out gradually with aim to make AI accessible to anyone curious about its capabilities. So I think that's pretty interesting. And then also sort of in the same article, it's not the second thing that I was going to talk about, is you can jump into settings and very quickly opt out of training right there from that free side of the account. So they're showing it on the screen. They're going down to the bottom right. They hit settings. There's one option there. You toggle it off to the toggle is called improve the model for everyone. So I thought this was really interesting that ChatGPT or OpenAI there's other, obviously lots of models that you can use for free without logging in. So I think they're smart maybe to, although they have a large share of people using it, this is another great way to get more people to come in without feeling like they have to trade off their email for it. And then the other thing.
Wait, just a second for that. It's 3.5 that you can use, right?
Oh,
like you can use 4. So you used to. So it's the free account. You just don't have to have an account. And I assume when you do this, obviously you don't get your chat saved because it does not know who you are.
Yeah, but Google, Bard did. I mean, you could just use it, right? So, Bing Chat, you could just use it. You can use it if
Canada begs to differ.
There's an asterisk there. Okay, real quick, so we don't take too much time on this. This is something that Copilot already had, and Copilot uses DALL-E 3. So to me, this is like playing catch up with your own product. It's weird. So right now I'm just showing on my screen. I just did a very quick image just to show this real quick. I said create an image of a clown looking shocked at something off camera, make it 69 aspect ratio. Boom. It makes it. I'm in ChatGPT. But now if you click on the picture, you now have an edit button in the upper right corner. So you can hit select. I'm going to go ahead and highlight his nose here. Then I get a little edit selection here at the bottom, and I'm going to say make it an apple for a nose, and we'll throw that in there really quick and see if it works or if it does anything. I still think this is like, for people who are using like Copilot Pro, number one, you still always get in Copilot Pro, you get 4 images at once. Super helpful. And the editor is much better than this. This is very, very basic. I'm not saying it's not welcomed. You can see this is in real time, how long it's taking just to edit this image. This also is much, much faster in Copilot. And there's some ways that you can do it in Copilot for free. So it's great. I'm glad it's here. It takes some time. I mean, we're still waiting for it to make the change to the image. We'll just give it another couple seconds here and see if it does a good job. Yeah, I mean, it did throw an apple. For the most part, it looks like the same part of the rest of the picture. Here's an updated image, so on and so forth. So just something. And now if I click out of it, by the way, it's edited, which I don't like the idea that I can't go back if I didn't like it.
Mm.
Oh, no, I take that back. It's still in the same feed. I take that back. I didn't see that earlier. So, some new updates from OpenAI, not game changing, but nice to see. And I do like the idea that they're opening it up and you don't have to necessarily sign in if you just want to try out 3.5.
What's interesting about that is that DALL-E 2, before it was a part of ChatGPT, had both in painting and out painting.
Yeah.
So, like,
I agree.
it's clearly not a huge priority. It's like, what is, this is better. DALL-E 3 is much better than DALL-E 2. This in painting is better than the previous in painting. But it is a little weird. Like, hey, look, we did this new thing that's still not exactly the capacity we had before.
Yeah. And I think it's weird to me that Microsoft, who we know is like using OpenAI, and I'm not taking anything away with Microsoft. Maybe they created this side of it, but I mean, it definitely says powered by DALL-E 3, and you get 4 images. You can go to any one of them, turn it immediately to steampunk, do in image, editing, all that stuff. It's like right there. I'm like, this is exactly what ChatGPT should look like, but it does. So,
well, that probably has to do with whatever arrangement they have.
Maybe.
Oh, we'll implement the most innovative parts because we have a paid for better paid for service and user base, and then you can do all the free stuff over here at a slower pace. That's me just messing around, but I do have a few stories on the brighter side of things for AI. University in Buffalo, New York, just generated a $20 million fund for the National AI Institute for Exceptional Education, which is essentially they help children with disabilities learn how to speak. So it's so that's a huge check mark in the side of, hey, this is how we can use AI to better humanity as a whole. Also, another story released, there was a review about how AI is being used in cancer research and cancer medicine and things like that. And it's increased the percentage of recovery technologies in cancer by 33%. Though that is in a mix with over the last 30 years and stuff like that. So this is just that latest bit of bump in cancer research. And then finally, not so much medical, but we have had robotics and AI. We're doing interpreting language, right? We've done interpreting speech. So we've got we've got hearing ourselves or hearing instructions. We've got computer vision, which is seeing things. And now the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology have created what they're calling biomimetic olfactory chips, so that you can smell what's going on, right? And I know that kind of sounds funny, but it's been apparently a problem for robotics in general, is being able to use olfactory clues for determining things. So a lot of this, and there's a lot of safety reasons why you'd want, olfactory sensors as well. Like there's a reason why they put that smell in natural gas when you're running your furnace, right? It's so that you know that there's some sort of leak, because normally it's not there, right? That's added. So with these olfactory sensors, that opens up just a whole new sensory field for robotics and AI to tap into, especially, now that you can process all these large data sets and you can say, oh, well, if I smell, like there was a story I just heard about bees, and when they sting you, they release a smell that scent on your clothes or on you that smells sort of like bananas or something like that. And that's an indicator to the rest of the hive that there's a danger and it should be attacked. So this is what I'm saying is how important these kinds of chips can be, is because now we can identify these issues, right? And we've heard stories of where animals with their high level of olfactory sense, they can smell when there's a problem in people, or they can sense, have all these different senses. And so perhaps we will get someone, so we can get a robot that can smell cancer. And so,
or, I mean, look, just from today's news, I mean, there was just that massive 7.3 earthquake in Taiwan. And you can imagine, I don't know if this is true, but we've all seen it where birds act differently just before something like, a natural event, or whatever. So if there's like changes in smell that aren't really perceptible by humans, but robots or AI could pick up, and that turns into even more of an early warning system, who knows? Who knows where that could go? But yeah, it's a huge advancement if they're able to figure that out. Who knows? It could save all sorts of lives. So,
by the way, that type of chip, I think, has applications in the sort of smart home application set, including being able to detect too high concentrations of CO2, for example. That's sniffable by maybe not by our nose, but by this kind of chip. It would be able to identify compounds that are dangerous in the air. I can imagine even eventually a tool that, and I actually know about a startup here locally that has a plug-in wall sensor that hooks up to your Wi-Fi and their application, and has a smelling capability, including eventually the ability to sniff out volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and that sort of thing for safety. But I just wanted to say, when you first said this, I just had to laugh out loud, because I thought, okay, well, where are we sniffing with these things? And I imagined a robotic dog, which goes after you to sniff you out completely. And so we'll have our own remote control dogs with sniffers on them to go out and intercept as sentries.
Yeah, you'll see them at airports before too long, right? And
right.
This will be very, very short. Here comes a firefighter story. But you're right, Andy, when you talk about that, because one of the things as a firefighter, one of the most dangerous things as a firefighter, and one of the places that you actually found that firefighters had the highest level of heart attacks was during overhaul. That's after the fire has been extinguished and you're now working the building and stuff. It also off gases terrible stuff. I really, truly don't know the impact that the years of me being a firefighter will have on my long-term health. I imagine, though, it was not a net positive. And I only did that for a job for like 5 years where I was like doing that kind of stuff, but I didn't work fires every day. But it's so hard to work on air while you're doing like the manual work, which is why firefighters drop dead of heart attacks and stuff. It's just extremely physical, hard work. But there's off-gassing going on all the place. To be able to send in, I mean, not even a robot dog, but that would be awesome. But I'm just saying, even AI sensors and stuff like that, that could smell the area and let firefighters know whether it's even safe to be in that area. I'm guessing 9 times out of 10, it is not safe to be in there without being on air. We kind of knew that back in 2023 or 2003 when I was a firefighter, but it wasn't the popular thing to do. It was uncomfortable, whatever. So all of a sudden, everybody's in there without their masks on, overhauling a building, and then you end up endangering more lives because of it. So just wanted to bring that up really quick.
And Greg is bringing the comedy. All our robot dogs will sniff each other just like all our regular dogs.
We won't be able to get them to do anything.
Hang on, I got to check out everybody in this facility.
That's awesome.
And I do have one small story, which for me, is a highlight. So apparently, and I didn't know this, but some of the best fast food you can get is from a gas station. So this might be a regional thing or whatnot, but apparently there's a convenience store chain called Re-Up, and what they're doing is they're going to install this this robot fry cook called the Wingman from a company called Nala Robotics. And so,
did you read this on April 1st?
No, I didn't. I double checked. Yeah, it's April 2nd. And I still got to look up that story about the UK professor, because that was like on the 29th or 28th. And so still too close. But essentially, it's a robot fry cook that you can install in that this company Re-Up's going to do. And they're going to install it in all of these convenience stores that are tied to gas stations, right? And it primarily makes wings, chicken wings, buffalo wings. And so it fries the wings, puts on the sauce, rolls them, put them in a basket, and then serves it up. And I was just thinking, this is totally going to work, because, having an established storefront restaurant where you go and then they happen to have, robotic cooks in the back.
Mm-hmm.
While that sounds pretty good, what's the viability beyond the novelty? It's like, oh, I'm going to try the burger and fries from this one store.
Right.
But everybody still uses a gas station. And if the EV grid is tied into the gas station, that means all the EVs are still going to go to the gas station.
And they'll be there.
Everybody goes to the convenience store when they're on a road trip.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done this myself hundreds of times. And if you can get a decent fast food meal real quick while you're filling up your tank or charging up your vehicle, fantastic. I see tons of potential here. Now if we can just get it in my area, that would be great.
Go for it, Andy.
Andy, you're muted.
Nope, still can't hear you. You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Wow, I'm back. Okay.
There he is.
It was my barking dogs that I had to mute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. So Cloudflare is an enormous company with data centers in 310 locations around the globe. And they have massive compute capacity. And they use this as a content delivery network for any application that's out there and or any website that wants to have really fast, low latency response wherever the person is accessing that thing. So your DNS, your sort of address on the web is managed by Cloudflare going forward. And Cloudflare determines instantaneously when someone makes a query against your website or your application, where the closest place to that is to reduce latency, and delivers that compute in part to that location. So it's basically redistributing all of the code so that it's closest to the user. Now, they've just shifted a little bit away from their business model, which is sort of cloud security and app acceleration and or website acceleration for zillions of websites out there, and every major network is connected to Cloudflare. They've just expanded into AI infrastructure, and they're offering now a service called Workers AI, which is a serverless platform for open source models like Llama 2, Mistral, Hermes, etc. So if you want to build an application, you don't need to count on one of your own servers to manage that, or go to AWS and use Vertex, or any of those options out there. You can now just do it through Cloudflare, and you can address one of these open source models. And what they're doing is they're adding massive quantities of GPUs to their data centers, those 310 centers around the world. And that creates an edge computing capability. And we've talked a little bit about this edge compute, which is putting the chip closer to the user to reduce the overall network distribution latency. That, if I were trying to access it from Europe and my server is up in Portland, Oregon at AWS, then, there's going to be a longer delay in milliseconds than if I'm accessing something that's available out nearby Paris, for example. So I thought that was really cool. That's going to make it democratizes access to open source models to a large degree, to make them available directly through Hugging Face, and you can deploy, code on Hugging Face to Cloudflare, deploy on Cloudflare Workers AI. So they're partnering with Hugging Face and Microsoft for some of their runtime AI models, and Meta for the Llama 2 model. Another little tidbit here. This is in the area of poaching, talent from different locations to try to advance your efforts in the world of AI. And Karl's going to love this one because Google has just hired away from OpenAI their lead for developer relations. And that person, his name's Logan Kilpatrick, is going to go over to Gemini and AI Studio at Google and work on making Google the best platform for developers working with AI.
Oh, so they need it. Just a quick clarification. He did leave OpenAI, and so he's been away. Like, I don't know if that was in the works, but he did leave OpenAI, and now he's at Google. He announces that.
I think like it's kind of like, I think he has probably like just like anybody who takes a new role, especially like you probably get a lot more oversight and a lot more because we've seen Vertex. The studio is just rough. It's hard to literally like how to build off of it. Just so many moving parts and so on. And if you ever compare it to OpenAI's developer portals and their play, it's just night and day. So I think
Logan.
a lot of simplification needs to happen on that side, and I think it just comes with the bloat that a big company like Google has. Like, so like essentially, if you look at Azure, it's literally the same thing, where there's just so many pieces, and even just working through something like Microsoft Copilot Studio and trying to connect that to something else. As a developer, it's just rough that I know Google's trying to include as many things as their legacy systems can, so you can access it all at the same time. But adding all those things in addition to the AI component just makes the entire experience like really terrible to use. So, and I think this is where OpenAI, Anthropic, they have an advantage because there's no legacy things that they need to bring in. They just like, oh, this is it. But Google has all these things that, and it's always about, I don't know, Andy, you probably like, we all know this from like working at or having worked with or at big companies. Is like, there's always a person that says, well, maybe what if the person needs this too? Right? It's always like, oh, let's just add this in because that 1%, less than 1%, that one person may want this specific feature that we really should be putting into it.
Or it can't sunset, right?
Yeah, you just can't sunset because of reasons.
I want to make sure that we mention Realm, which is Apple's paper. Apple released a paper introducing Realm, which is an AI system that can understand on-screen tasks, conversational context, and background processes. And the example in the rundown that I'm reading as I'm getting the news is the sort of thing that you can kind of do with by touching the phone number, right? So if scrolling through a website, you want to call a business, a user could say, Siri, call the business, and Siri would be able to see the phone number, right? So see it from the back end. I don't know, Siri lives inside the mirror and you're looking at the mirror. And find the number and call it directly. So that's cool, yay! But I think that what's even more important is if we look at that and say, okay, if that's true, what else is true? If Siri's able to, like the rabbit is watching you, right? They said it's going to watch you and do that. If Siri is quote unquote watching you from the inside, what does that mean that she could have context for? And God knows I am on the team of like, unleash Siri, please. She has to know Like, I have context. I've set up the context. It's not even hard context. It's like a double multiplication problem, and nope. We'll see, right? These sorts of things will likely be talked about in the Apple event that's happening, I believe, June 10th, WWDC.
Yeah. I have like maybe two things really quick. One of them is actually what Greg brought up, which Stability Audio 2.0 dropped today. That happened like an hour ago. So we can look really quick. They announced the Stability on X. They said introducing Stable Audio 2.0, a new model capable of producing high quality full tracks with coherent musical structure up to 3 minutes long at 44.1 kilohertz stereo from a single prompt. And you can go over to stableaudio.com. And there are a couple of pre-done tracks, stuff like post-rock, echoing electric guitars with chorus, recorded drum kit, electric bass, so on and so forth. And it'll show you it, or you can try the prompt. If you do click on the prompt, it does want you to log in. So just know that you can't actually try it for free. You have to trade your email for that, but you can probably try it for free, I would imagine. And a twofer on that one is that's really interesting that happened to come out today, because one of the news stories from yesterday was that a bunch of music artists had signed a letter talking about irresponsible AI. This is a quote from it. When used irresponsibly, AI possesses enormous threats to our ability to protect our privacy, our identities, our music, and our livelihoods, the letter reads. Some of the biggest and most powerful companies are, without permission, using our work to train AI models. For many working musicians, artists, and songwriters who are just trying to make ends meet, this would be catastrophic. And the letter is longer than that. So interesting, right? We have on the one side what is it, Sono and Stability Audio, and we talked about Loudly the other day, are able to do. And also you have the music artists pushing back and saying, we're going to fight against this, and they should. They should absolutely continue to make their voices known. So they don't get run over by what AI can do. I think like when somebody said in the article, it's not like anybody is necessarily, Jyunmi, you said this, like, I don't know who's really like choosing to listen to AI music. But if we just go back to this is the worst it'll ever be, we can't assume that people will continue to choose fully human created new music versus listening to something that you could just jump into Spotify and make on the fly and create your own playlist off of it that only Spotify makes money off of.
But that's not where money is.
And I think that's what the key is the threat to like livelihood and things like that creators are, or at least I imagine a great deal of creators have a concern with, is they don't trust the infrastructure that exists because they have never been properly compensated for their creative works. So they don't trust the Spotifys, they don't trust the music labels, they don't trust the movie producers and all of those kind of stuff. And they shouldn't, because they've never been treated well. So if we can fix that source problem, which may be a much larger problem than we can solve on this show, but it does speak to what inherent systemic issue is there.
It's also not where the money is. In like Spotify, no musician is getting like crazy rich off the Spotify.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're getting that. There are a lot of musicians who make a living with sync licensing, which means that they generate sound that then is licensed for video, for those kinds of projects. And that is likely to be the first thing that goes away like that. Right.
I think like my personal use, like I use Epidemic Sound to do a lot of stock audio and stock like sound. But the thing is though, what I've been finding is it's hard enough to find the right music for the right video that you're creating. Whatever it is, whether it's a documentary, whether it's a product video, whether it's a real estate video, it's always tough to find the right music. But I'm finding it's a lot easier to find to create that right music. And even though it's not the full like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes that I usually do, and I still believe I still support artists and work with Epidemic Sound on that. But like those sound effects that I can create now, those took some even the longer time to try to figure out. It's so much easier just, I need a whoosh, I need a doorbell, I need a this, I need footsteps. So much easier to create than that. And from a music perspective, if I just need a background trap beat or I don't know, I do a lot of AI content, so it's like some sort of sci-fi interstellar music in the background. I just type that in, and that's enough. I don't need, and I think that's where it's you may creep into those artists who I don't know if that's a livelihood of stock music, stock sounds, but then it's going to creep into that. And then you're right. All it takes is, hey, I need a playlist that I would need to zone out while I'm doing work. Well, I could just using AI rather than try to figure. I know Spotify has their own type of playlist, but it's easier to create your own.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna leave it there because I still had more things. I knew there was a lot this week, but it's cool. We'll get to those on another show or topic. It's always fun to have a few extra. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about AI in movies, which movies we think got it right. That'll be a fun conversation. Come hang out with us. Jimmy's really excited. I'm excited to listen to Jyunmi and Beth and people who know more about this than me. So I'll be sitting and listening a lot tomorrow. Friday we have our 2-week recap show that we'll be doing every other Friday. And it's like, what did we just talk about? So we'll revisit a lot of these topics. Maybe some of the stories that didn't get time today. We'll bring those up on Friday's show. So keep on coming back. Keep hanging out with us. And until tomorrow, have a great one, guys. Bye.
Aloha.